Well, we did a good job. We'll try again. Yeah.
You did a great job. I'm excited. I'm so glad to see you.
Well, it's good to see you. It sure is.
Are you at a laptop or a desktop computer?
This is a desktop.
Okay, perfect. I can see you great.
Okay.
Should we just chit chat a little bit first? And
Yeah, let's do.
how are you?
Well, I'm very good. How are you?
I'm good. I've been having, you know, it persists, the crazy symptoms, but I think I'm having some relief. There's just feels like there's a ton of pressure all the time. Like,
Pressure.
yeah, just I can't even explain what it is. It's like cellular pressure. Like I'm gonna
Well, you are very busy
I am.
and you have a lot of demands on you.
It's true.
So you are under a certain amount of stress.
It's true.
Now, you see what you need to do. This is my advice to you. I'm kidding. You need to get rid of all the stress in your life.
You have the coronavirus. Like, there's all these things that are stressful.
I'm kidding. That would be ideal, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
In your situation,
Yeah.
I think what's going on is that you are trying to handle all these new energies, frequencies coming into your body. And at the same time, you do have stress. You have to in your job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have some interference going there.
Yeah. But even when I don't have stress, it just feels like there's just like this.
Yeah, but when is that you don't have stress?
Well, I don't feel like I have a lot of stress. Like I
No,
love.
but the point is, consciously,
Yeah.
no.
Okay.
But at another level, I think you've got stress coming in. That's my diagnosis.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Because I think a lot of this, what's going on in our bodies is in the subconscious, not the conscious mind. I think I'm absolutely free of stress. And then something happens that tells me, uh-oh, nope, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. It is a lot of that unconscious stuff.
But I hope that was one thing I was going to bring up with you.
Yeah.
I feel that the title,
Yeah.
that God, what is the title?
It's When Lightning Strikes.
Well, there's more than that. There's something about the shadow or something.
Yeah, we have the unsexy side of awakening, but that's just a working title.
Oh, good. Because that was what I was concerned about.
Yeah.
I was afraid that people would think this was all about the negative part.
Right. It's really about integration and how to help yourself integrate.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy to see you. So Katrina had a family
Yeah.
emergency. Her mom is getting out of the hospital, so she had to go meet her
Where's your mom?
in Queens in New York. So I guess she's okay, but she had to go help her dad. So it's just us, which I'm fine with because, you know, we have rapport. Is there anything you want to chat about before we start, or should we just go right into it?
I think we're ready to go in.
All right, let's go in.
Go in while we're connected.
While we're connected. I'll just introduce you. And then you can say a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll just flow with the questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I want to mention is that I have this new book. I'm reading the proofs on it now. Yeah. And I want to get that mentioned.
Totally.
Get an introduction. And I can even show the face.
Okay. Oh, great. Yeah, that's great. Oh, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I think she did a great job.
Yeah, that's lovely.
We've got a little problem in that the book turned out to be much longer than it should be. So we've got to figure out a way to cut it down. But anyway, we're working on the proofs now for this.
Okay, that sounds good. I can't wait to read it. I think when you lean back, I can see you a little bit better. Like you can see yourself, right? Okay, that's perfect.
It's all right.
Yeah. Are you comfortable?
Yes, I tried putting pillows in the chair, but boy, that didn't work. I felt like I was going to fall out.
That's okay. It works. It's fine.
Okay, I'll try to sit back better.
There you go.
Is that better?
Yes, that's perfect. Okay. Here we go. I've never actually done this by myself. It's always me and Katrina, so it's an experiment, but it's going to be great.
Okay, it'll be fine.
Okay. So, hi, Dorothy. How are you today?
Well, I'm just great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to chat with you. I'll just introduce us really quickly. I'm Kate West. I'm one of
Yes,
the actors on the film When Lightning Strikes. It's a
yes.
movie about awakening experiences and how to integrate them and how to support yourself through what can often be a very disorienting time. And it's based off of my own experience with a Kundalini awakening that turned my life upside down. And I'm really excited to talk with you today because you've been someone who, throughout the whole journey, has provided me with hope and inspiration and eagerness to experience the joys of this, the fruits of this, and also friendship. It's lovely that I can just call you and get
I know.
someone who understands and have a friendly voice to
It's great.
on this journey. So Dorothy is an author and someone who had her own really powerful awakening experience with Kundalini. When was it?
1981. Now just think how long ago that was.
I was two.
1981.
Amazing. And you had no context for it because you were in Kansas and you were
Well, I knew what it was.
yeah.
I mean, in a general way. I didn't know much about Kundalini.
Yeah.
But at that time, you see, Kundalini was almost unknown in the West.
Yeah.
And certainly it was unknown in Kansas.
Yes.
And I knew that was what was happening to me because I had in effect wanted it to happen and literally made it happen,
Mm-hmm.
which you're not supposed to be able to do, but I did anyway. And so I didn't have any teacher,
Mm-hmm.
any guru, and there was no internet. Now you can just punch on Kundalini on the internet and get thousands of sites. You can walk around and see all the yoga studios that call themselves Kundalini Yoga Studios. There was nothing like that. I didn't know. I knew one person who knew what Kundalini was. One.
It's amazing.
And so I was alone on the journey for basically for 15 years.
That's amazing. And what you're talking about, that sort of lack of information, is exactly why we're making this film, because even though there is the internet today and there's information out there, a lot of it's just,
Wrong.
it's wrong and it's not helpful, and it can become even more traumatizing to a person going through this. And
I know. That's why I just love this project. I thought to think that I lived long enough to see something like this happening. And I think it's wonderful what you're doing. Congratulations.
I'm so glad that you're a part of it. And we were supposed to be filming this week actually at your place in
Yeah.
but because of the coronavirus, we're doing it virtually. But I just want to give people a little bit of information about you. I know you have a new book coming out called Kundalini Wonder. Tell us about that.
Okay. Shall I show it?
Yeah.
I've got it right. We're reading the proofs.
Perfect.
Even this week. Okay. This is the book. It's called Kundalini Wonder. And then the subtitle is, believe it or not, The God, Goddess in Your Body. Because when Kundalini is right, when it's in the correct alignment with the frequencies and so forth, it really feels like that there's a God inside your body making love to you in a very strange and wonderful way. So this book consists of reflective passages that I wrote over many years about, it's not like most Kundalini books. It's not about what is, describing Kundalini or how to have it or what a chakra is. It's not that at all. It's simply reflections on Kundalini and all the things it can do and all the many ways it can appear. And it's got everything from children to elders to all sorts of things. So I think people are going to like it if they've had a taste, even a taste of Kundalini, because you are desperate at that time for connection with others who know something about this phenomenon. And
Right.
it's changing your body practically every hour. You
Yeah.
know, it's a total transformation of your body. Ultimately, it may take a long time, but even down to the cellular level, every pore and every ligament in your body will be ultimately transformed. And of course, that isn't always the easiest thing
Mhm.
because it's like a birth. And birth itself is not always easy, but you're awfully glad it happens. And then you love the fruits of it. So I feel very honored to be part of your project
Yeah.
and very thrilled that you are doing this. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. We're so happy to have found you and to have we're part of the film is we were going to come celebrate your, did you turn 93?
92. Just
Over
92.
your 92nd birthday. So we'll have to do that, even though it'll be
Right.
belated, but we'll do that when, the quarantine lifts. But we're thrilled to have you as part of it because you're someone who's lived through, just every different shade of it and has really a beautiful story to tell that I think can offer people a lot of hope and inspiration because it can be quite a tumultuous journey. And when Katrina and I came together and decided to do this project, or it decided to do us really, with the
Yeah.
intention to give people hope. Because when I was going through the beginning stages of mine, I just felt completely hopeless. I felt like life was over. I felt like I was going crazy, that nothing was ever going to be the same again. And I didn't understand these symptoms that I was having. I saw all the traditional doctors, MRIs, brain scans, CAT,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
and then
Yeah.
to find something like your work and then finally have an understanding and a context for what's going on is like an oasis in this. It's actually life-saving, I think. So that's why I'm so grateful that you've put your work out there and you've let yourself be heard and seen. It's really a service to people who are going through this.
Well, since I had my own awakening in 1981,
Yeah.
I have been totally committed to Kundalini in its many aspects. So one of the things I love to do now is to help other people on the journey, and many are in the same place that you just described. Am I going crazy? What is happening to me? And if you can just hear their story and tell them, no, you're not crazy. This is a wonderful transformation that you are going through. It may be a little tough at times, but it's ultimately fantastic. And I think you are very privileged to be part of it because I feel that now we're hearing awakening stories all over the planet. I mean, there really is a shift. There really is a global transformation. I personally think it is leading us into a mutation. I literally think we're changing so much that as a species, we are in the middle of mutation. And of course, people use the famous example, the caterpillar and the butterfly. Well, if a caterpillar could do it, why can't we?
Yeah.
So, anyway, it's a fascinating period.
Yeah, it truly is. And I guess let's just start by giving people an understanding of what Kundalini energy is. Because in the film, we focus on spiritual awakenings and sometimes what's referred to as spiritual emergence or emergency. And Kundalini is one of those types. So just for people who don't have really an awareness, or maybe this is the first time they're hearing about, oh, a Kundalini awakening can look this way or that way. Can you give them just an understanding of like, what is that energy and what is it doing in your body?
I wish I had the answer to that. I think it's a mystery. I
Uh-huh.
think Kundalini is an energy that we are born with. Everybody has it, but it's quiet. It's in the subconscious. And of course, the ancients said, and I think correctly, that it was rests at the base of the spine. And everybody, I think, is familiar with the Eastern myth of the snake. They tried to explain it as a snake that rests at the bottom of your spine. And finally, after many years of practice and with the right teacher, the snake would awaken. And then it would maybe slowly ascend up your spine through what are called the chakras. The chakras actually, each chakra is a nerve plexus, literally. So they thought the snake would go up, and they thought of the chakras as wheels. And they said that those wheels would turn as the snake went by. So the snake would ascend and ascend. And finally, if you are ready and if your guru approves, you are allowed to have full awakening, in which case there is a lotus in your skull that begins to open in 1,000 petals. That's the traditional description.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, mine didn't happen that way.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't happen that way at all. I was, well, mine was instantaneous, literally. And it awakened the lower chakras. And then those energies literally shot into my head. And my head opened in total rapture. And I wasn't quite prepared. I didn't even have a name for that. I knew it was, I thought, well, yes, this is like a lotus opening, because it was pulsation and pulsation and pulsation. Each one was rapture. But, okay, what is Kundalini? I think the best definition that we have is that it is the life force. It is what keeps, it's the electromagnetic system, spiritual system of your body. I think it's what connects us to the deity, to the divine. I really do. And I believe that when it is right and it is functioning properly, and you have those experiences of raw ecstasy, and that's all you can say about it, I think that's the closest to, quote, God, source, divine, whatever you want to say, we're ever going to get in this lifetime. Because I think it's like the cosmos. What is the cosmos? It's too big for us to comprehend. So a lot of it is embedded in mystery, but it's a wonderful mystery, and it keeps unfolding.
Yeah.
And more people are having this. I think it's marvelous. Yes, there are problems. Yes, you've had a tough time, my dear.
I've had a ride, a hellish ride, but I'm starting to finally see, some of the fruits of it, and the transformation continues to be revealed to me. And I wouldn't be here if it weren't for guides like you and people giving me grounded information on what's actually happening, and so I can understand it and really.
Well, that's my pleasure, as I said, to help people who are going through this experience, because it can be very bewildering, very upsetting, very difficult and painful for some people.
Yes.
For some people. Other people, like me, I don't know why, but you get the blessing, you get the kiss right at the first. And it is like you have a new lover, and that lover is the inner beloved. It's an amazing experience. And I want everyone to have that. So I try to help as best I can.
Yeah, thank you. The idea of the inner beloved, I find that so fascinating and beautiful, because along the path, I think what happens is we get blasted into this sort of new experience that we have to then make sense of, and we become vulnerable, looking for answers, not knowing where to find them. And we can become vulnerable to people who maybe don't have the most grounded information. And ultimately, I feel like this journey is about returning to self as your own authority.
Yes.
Your own beloved, really.
Well, that was my journey, certainly, since I didn't have any outer teacher, or there wasn't much information.
Yeah.
And I call it the inner beloved, because it is, I said, it is literally like having a lover inside your body, not outside, inside, making love to you. It's an amazing experience. Can anybody explain that? I don't know.
Yeah.
But bless you. And you are beginning to have at least glimpses or little tastes of what this can be. But I think part of the necessity is time itself,
Mhm.
because you are absorbing
Mhm.
brand new frequencies into your body.
Right.
And it takes a while for those to get it, for your body to assimilate
Yeah.
and adjust to those. And also, I found, even though I'd had this marvelous awakening, then it became a kind of stop and go process because it had to go through my body and there were blocks in my body. And every time it hit a block, it would just like it would press and press and it would call your attention to that area. And then you would get through that and you would assimilate. Then there'd be a quiet period where you would assimilate those new frequencies. And then here would come another one, another block to be unblocked.
Yeah.
And it was a long process. Mine was not that terrible. I mean, it was difficult, let's say, a little bit painful, but basically it was not a dreadful, it was not a dreadful, it was not a dreadful journey at all.
Yeah. Well, what's for people who might be experiencing some of that pressure coming up against blockages in their system, manifesting as different symptoms? Like, for example, for me, I couldn't see for a while. Like, I
Could you see?
lost vision. Yeah. Um,
You mean not at all, or what? Or worry? Or,
like a sort of different, it's really hard to describe because it almost felt like it had to do with perception, not vision. But I wouldn't be able to recognize my parents and I wouldn't be able to recognize certain things that I'd lived with my whole life. Just really, which is terrifying. But for people who might be having experiences like this and don't know what they are, can you explain a little bit about what the process does when it comes up against different uh, maybe blockages? Yeah.
well, as I said, it focuses your attention on that problem. That's the first thing. And I will add that eye pressure, as such, is a common symptom of Kundalini. So I think that was part of what was happening to you. But yours was an extreme case,
Mm-hmm.
truly an extreme case. And did that finally subside?
Yeah. Yeah.
How long would it go on? Do you know?
It was like a good, 6 months. Like it was a
But
not consistent, but just like,
oh, these off and on. Well, that's tough.
yeah.
And you got, but it did restore. You finally got back to normal.
Yeah. Hmm.
Eyes anyway. Well,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Well, bless you. See, I think we have to learn from each other
Yep.
and do what you are doing because there really aren't, I never found anyone I would say, this is my teacher.
Yeah.
I learned here and there from this one and that one.
Yeah.
But I think, as a friend of mine said, we must be teachers to one another. This is a very new process still. Everyone is having a different process. And we have definitions of many kinds, but who knows? I call it a mystery. I think we have to have a great deal of faith to go through. I do, I myself do. But when, as I said, when things are in right alignment and you feel rapture or ecstasy, you say, oh, yes, this is who I am. I think it's the same. I think that's what the angels are. I think that's their state of being. I
Yeah.
think all of us, if we're lucky, when we go to heaven, I think that's how we will feel. We won't have a physical body, but we will have, I guess you would say, an emotional body, and it will be ecstasy.
Mm. That's really beautiful. There's a sense of returning to yourself that
Oh, yeah.
that's really because what can be so disorienting is you're shedding, it's an ego eradicator. You're shedding all the aspects of your ego that you've lived with and thought were you your whole life. So it can be very disorienting and you cannot know where you're going and feel like maybe where you're going isn't safe, but ultimately it's leading you back to yourself, your true self.
Absolutely. And what happens, of course, was that we've all been victims of what they call the cultural trance,
Yes.
what you've just described, ego, which is partly ego. And we live with that. We think that's who we are, our job, our family, our whatever, relationships. And then suddenly all that is kind of taken away. And we're left with Yeats has a wonderful phrase. He speaks of when naked to naked goes. And he means the naked self, stripped of that ego, stripped of all those false identifications. And it meets the naked reality, the absolute reality. And that's really something.
Mm.
And then you know, oh yes, this is who I really am.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's wonderful. And you don't stay in that state all the time afterwards, but you keep coming back to it,
Yeah.
being reminded.
Yeah. I think that that's a common fear in the process is like, who am I becoming? Am I going to be able to function without a identity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get I get letters. I got one recently from a woman who decided not to go ahead with the process because she was so afraid. It is the unknown.
Yeah.
And people are afraid of the unknown. Me, I just let it happen. I didn't. I was never afraid.
Yeah. That's amazing.
I was never afraid.
That's amazing. You somehow knew in your core this was a good thing.
Well, if you're thrown into ecstasy,
Yeah.
you know it's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's very, very wonderful.
Yeah.
And mine was very intense for quite some time.
Mhm.
It was so intense that I finally just lay on the floor and stretched out my arms and said, "Here I am, God, take me."
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's that ultimate surrender that
Yeah.
about.
And it's like, I wouldn't say it is true, but it is though Kundalini has a consciousness and a mind. And like it knows how to direct this process. I didn't have an outer teacher, but I feel that I did have an inner guru, and that was the Kundalini itself and love, total love. If you experience one of the things it did for me, and I'm sure it would for other people too, I had been a pretty depressed child,
Mm-hmm.
very withdrawn, very isolated, just read books all the time to get away from that outer world. But that cured me. I mean, how can you be depressed if you've got this intense bliss flooding your body? You can't maintain both of those. You have to choose one or the other.
Yeah.
So that was my cure.
Yeah. Right. And ultimately, even if people are having challenges and coming up against blockages, the process does have its own intelligence. The energy does have its own intelligence. And so
So,
creating an aspect of trust is really crucial, even though it can be so hard to do.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not an easy process, no matter what your circumstances are.
Yeah.
You are literally, when we say transfigured, we mean literally. I mean, that process, those energies are moving through your body, and everything is getting changed from the cellular level right on up. Everything you've got, your skin, your eyes, everything. How are your eyes now?
My eyes are good. It's a beautiful sunny day in Ojai, California, and I can see. And I'm just grateful. Yeah. Um, yeah, so they're good. What was I going to ask you? So, so this seems to be happening to more and more people.
That's what I understand. That's the reports that I hear.
Yeah. What do you attribute that to? Do you think it has something to do with planetary movement or, um,
I don't know.
yeah,
I'm not into it, very much into astrology or astronomy.
yeah,
It could, anything could. But I just think it's time.
mhm,
I think it's that they are directing a process of a radical shift in the nature of the human. I mean, we are the caterpillars getting ready to fly. And, but it's catching.
yep,
Kundalini is catching. And, the idea of the morphogenetic field, that a field is prepared, and then those who come later will transform more easily. I mean, more readily, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like wildfire. It's catching, I think, all over the world because I say this over and over, that the world is falling apart on the outside, and we know that. We don't have to count the many ways it's collapsing, but it's rebuilding on the inside spiritually. All at the same time. It's going up and down all at the same time. The ascent and the collapse.
Yeah, right. Um, so I wonder if you want to describe like what your experience was actually like when you first felt the energy and then
Well, I will, yes, I will do that.
okay.
Because I think other people would be interested. Everybody has a different awakening experience,
Yeah.
as we well know.
Yeah.
It's like if we all went in and listened to music, we would all have a different experience of that music. And it depends on who you are, how old you are, what your body state is, what your sensibility is. All of that, I think, governs how you're going to feel. Now, I was 53 years old. I'm now 92. So that's been a long time ago. But this is how it happened for me. I was in a long term relationship that seemed to be absolutely breaking up. I was totally devastated. I was more than heartbroken. I was ruined, I thought. I said it's like those moments when you feel the earth open beneath your feet and you fall into a dark pit. I was in bad shape. Now, Crazy Guru Osho, who was also very, very wise, says something like that can prepare a space, an opening for something different to come in. Well, certainly that space was prepared for me. And that morning, and this was in May of 1981, beautiful day, I was teaching uh, at a state university in Wichita, Kansas. I was teaching, I'd taken a PhD in English literature. I loved literature. And also had helped to set up a women's studies program there because I was very into feminism. I had encountered the Great Mother, and that had been a marvelous experience for me. I had traveled in Greece, and I could feel it in the land. I could feel the energies arising. It was very exciting, very wonderful. It was like a kind of deja vu experience. And so I'd been in this long-term relationship. And so I was prepared in that there was a space that had opened up. And that morning I was reading a fairly kind of an academic book, but it wasn't totally academic. It was by a well-known writer of the time named William Irwin Thompson. And he was known as a futurist. And he also was a mystic. And this wasn't a book about Kundalini. It was about world mythology and world cultures. But he had 2 pages on Kundalini. And he described it quite well, but it was only 2 pages. And for some reason, I thought to myself, I think I can do that. I think I can bring those energies up. Why I thought that, I don't know. Because you're not supposed to be able to do that. As I said, you're supposed to spend years with a guru and eat nothing, live in a cave and eat grass only, and practice all these austerities, prepare your body, prepare your spirit. I hadn't eaten any grass or lived in any cave. But I thought, I think I can do this. Now, in that book, there were 2 photographs, illustrations. One was a picture of the very famous statue by Bernini of Saint Teresa. I don't know if you know her story. She had a lot of ecstasy in her life, and she described her experience as an angel that came and thrust a lance into her breast, and that awakened intense ecstasy in her. And so his statue, which I believe is, I think it's in Rome, it's in Italy, is Saint Teresa in ecstasy. She's there, obviously, in a transformed state, and the angel is there thrusting the lance into her chest. The second picture was the famous Yab Yum image of Shiva and Shakti in union.
Sure.
And since I've been in women's studies and been a feminist, we'd done a lot in gender studies, you know, in the male and the female, and how everybody has elements of both in their psyche. So I concentrated on that picture. And it was as if in my mind, I became and felt the energies of each one in turn. First the male, then the female, then both in union. And then I was ready to try this experiment. It was an awesome experiment. And I thought, now what do I do? First, I have to arouse this lower, some teachers called it your ball of energy from the lower chakras. First, I have to get awakened there. I didn't even have a word for the chakras. I didn't know what they were. But I knew that you were supposed to have a ball of energy. And I did. I could feel it expand. And then I thought, okay, now I have to get that up somehow into my head. What do I do? What do you do? Well, I didn't know what to do, but I just started breathing very deeply. I called it yogic breathing. Maybe it is a form of some kind of yogic breathing. I don't know. I didn't know anything about yoga. So I started breathing very deep, in, out, and then concentrating up, up, up. I've got to bring this up. And then suddenly, within a few seconds, that sweet, wonderful, lovely energy shot into my head. Just shot up there. It was like my head did open. And it was like 1,000 lotus petals opening because there were pulsations. I thought, well, no wonder they describe it that way. That's what it feels like. It feels like petals opening, opening, opening. And then it was like my crown, and I didn't have a word, I didn't know what to call that. At the top of my head opened, and it was like all the gorgeous energies of the universe itself, the ecstatic energies came into my head. My whole head went into ecstasy. And that was a high moment. And along with that feeling came a realization. And this was the realization that came to me. You think you exist, but you really don't. What exists is this vast, indescribable, incredible field of flowing energy. That is the reality. You are a little teeny weeny part of it, like a dropless part of an ocean. You are it in that you are this wee little bit of it, but what you call yourself is a fiction that you have created. You think that's who you are. You are not. You are one sweet drop in this vast ocean. And then I thought, and I don't know what I'm doing. I better not continue to do this. So I better get these energies down somehow.
Yeah.
Go down. But I was then in a real trance state, really entranced state. Now I was alone for the next, my still partner was going to work every day. So I was alone in the house day after day. And in that shift of consciousness, I'd shifted consciousness into this trance state. I literally, subconsciously, intuitively enacted an initiation rite.
Hmm.
And I did things which I later, much later, years later, learned are part of what is called the first level Buddhist initiation.
Mhm.
And then there is part of Tantra in Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhist initiation. The subject holds a vajra and a bell. And do you know what a vajra is?
Not in the way that you're talking about it.
Well, it's like a little wand with bulbs, a bulb on each end. It's like a barbell, except it's smaller.
Okay.
There's something with a bulb on each end. Where was I going to find a vajra in my house? I found one.
Oh,
It was made out of glass. I don't know where it came from,
perfect.
but I held that. If you want to wait, I'll show them to you.
Sure.
It's kind of interesting.
Sure.
I still keep them as my sacred implements.
Great.
Right over here. As you can see, I've gotten a little bit stiff through the years.
Well,
But we
you're entitled. Yeah.
okay. Okay. Well, I want to. That's interesting that I could show you. This was the Vajra.
Okay. That's
Can
the
you,
actual one.
that's the actual one,
Okay.
and it was, you see, like a little barbell.
Right.
It's not legitimate. It's not really what Tibetan Buddhists use. Theirs is usually metal. But this I found, and it certainly looked like a Vajra. And I held that in one hand. And then I needed the bell. Well, you know the Tibetan Buddhist bells, of course, are the big bells. You've seen those, I'm sure.
Right.
Very large bells. Well, I didn't have a very large bell.
Okay.
I didn't have anything except this.
Right. Okay. That works.
I said, well, a bell is a bell. This is actually from India, I think. I found it somewhere. I've never been to India. So I held my barbell, my vajra, and my bell. And I continued to have these images inside. I had a lot of images. And I did things that were intuitively, that are part of the Tibetan Buddhist initiation ceremony.
Okay.
And at that time, everything I did was rapture. I had never done yoga. Yoga was still considered very mysterious and very esoteric at that time, particularly where I was living.
Mm-hmm.
I knew one person who was said to do yoga.
Mm-hmm.
That's, it wasn't like today, where there's a studio on every corner. Yoga, Kundalini has become a buzzword.
Yep.
And so is yoga.
Yep.
But in those days, it was very mysterious.
Yeah.
But my mother had purchased at the grocery store a tiny little book on yoga with pictures of people doing these asanas, movements, postures. And I thought, well, I wonder if I could do that. So I sat down in a tailor position and I started just by raising my arm like that. And when I did that, I felt rapture flow all the way up my arm. And then I did the other arm, and the same thing happened. And I thought, well, no wonder people do yoga. It's so easy and so marvelous. I didn't know any better.
Yeah, amazing.
Any better. I was so naive. I was completely naive. A lot of the things that happened to me, I really couldn't interpret.
Yeah.
So and I had day after day after day after day, I had this intense rapture. Just went on and on and on. and I didn't have many duties at school either. I wasn't teaching, and I had to go to my office for a couple of hours a day. The world itself turned absolutely beautiful.
Wow.
It was so gorgeous. Everything, and everyone was beautiful. And hear about the I am you effect. Well, everyone I looked at, I felt that's me. I am you. If I look in the mirror, your face is the face that I will see because I am you. So I had that experience. It was wonderful, but had no one to talk to. I didn't even have a friend
Yeah.
who, you like to tell somebody.
Yeah. You want to share.
This big thing happened to me.
Right.
I didn't have a soul.
Right.
Kept a notebook, and I finally had this one person who was a psychotherapist and she was my friend, and she had been with OSHA
Mm-hmm.
in India and in the United States.
Mm.
So I thought, well, she'll understand this. So I told her, and I told her what was happening, and she said, "You have experienced rapture." I said, "Oh, is that what it was?" I didn't even know what it was. But interestingly enough, in that group, they feel you should not cling to anything.
Yeah.
You should just let it happen and then forget about it.
Yeah.
I said, no, I'm not going to forget about it. This is too serious.
Yeah.
It's too important. And I had a sense, this is kind of interesting. I kind of knew it was important because it happened so early in the shift.
Mm-hmm.
So I kept a notebook. And when I saw her again, I don't know, a few weeks later, and I mentioned it again, she said, "Oh, you're still thinking about that?"
Ha ha ha. How could you think about anything else?
That was sort of the end of that connection.
Yeah. Right.
And I guess I did try to show one or two of my closer friends my entries in the notebook
Mm-hmm.
I was keeping. They didn't get it. They didn't understand it at all. So I quit trying to tell anybody.
Yeah.
Except one friend was very supportive. Not that she understood Kundalini, but she said anything that awakens the body is good because she was very much into physical.
It sounds like you've had, I mean, an absolutely beautiful experience with it, and I know it wasn't without challenges. And so, for someone who's experiencing just sort of the dark night of this whole process, what can you say to them that would, offer some hope and something to look forward to?
Well, I would say this. Kundalini is like a coin with two sides. One has the sun, radiant, effulgent. The other side has the shadow.
Mhm.
And sometimes, when we are not adequately prepared, we can fall into the shadow. And what we then must do is work on whatever it is that is hanging us up, what's blocking us. If we have psychological unresolved issues, attend to those. That's a wonderful time to do it because you're in touch with your dark issues. Do everything you can to favor your body. I mean, I'm talking eat right, live right, stay away from bad things, like drugs or too much alcohol. In fact, I couldn't deal with any alcohol, even a little. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
You're too sensitive.
Yeah.
Recognize that you're going through a birth process, and birth can be very hard. If you can, if you can find the right things to read, if you can find anybody who's been through this experience and is on the other side, find people who will brighten up your life. Do things that make you happy. Allow yourself to be happy. I think many of us have fallen into a kind of childhood trap where we get used to being unhappy and we feel there's something wrong with us if we're not happy, if we're not unhappy. I grew up in a time, at least in the English department, you had to be very unhappy. Otherwise, you were shallow,
Yeah, right.
you know, and so you had to be unhappy.
Right.
So I would say, hang on. That's the main thing. Just hang in there. Time itself will do wonders for you.
Yeah.
But find people, if you can, who will affirm you. If you can find a therapist, a good therapist, who knows something about Kundalini or transformation or spiritual transformation, good for you.
Yeah.
You need that. You need help. And I think if you are in a community, in a way, I would never follow a guru because I'm not into that. But in a way, I kind of envy people who had communities. I
Yeah.
thought at least there's a supportive community, and at least maybe some of them know what this is all about.
That's one of the main reasons why we're doing this, is to create cultural understanding so that people don't feel they're going crazy, that they're held in a field of understanding what the experience is and can ultimately surrender to the process that's supposed to be revealing beauty and wonder once the blockages are worked through. And to find, Katrina and I speak with experts, and we, she's done research, and we have all these opinions and solutions that come our way, but ultimately we've found that it's the community that's the most healing, and just being held by people who understand, love you regardless of what you're going through, and also see where you're going, can hold you.
That is wonderful.
Yeah.
You have a very good understanding.
Thank you.
Very good. You know what's going on.
Yeah, it's taken, and I've had to do my own research. Like I had to.
Your own teacher. You were your own teacher because
Yeah.
you had to be. But
Yeah.
I bless you for doing this
Thank
because
you.
to me it's thrilling.
Yeah.
I went so long when there was nobody, not even one person.
Yeah. I know. I can't even imagine.
Well, it was not easy, except that, it was isolation and loneliness and, and ecstasy all rolled into one. The first, you see, and when I tried to tell people, I had a guy who was there at the university, and at noon he would teach a little energy class, and he would, have us walk slowly and think about energy movement. And I told him what I was going through, and he said, and I quote, "If you're lucky, you'll get over this."
Oh, geez. Yeah.
That wasn't encouraging.
Yeah.
I moved to San Francisco, and I was taking a Qigong class there.
Yep.
And this woman was an expert, went to China and worked in hospitals there. And her husband was a master who could stand on meat cleavers, and eggs, uncooked eggs. He was a master, and she was a master teacher. I thought, well, I'll tell her.
Yeah.
Well, I told her. And you know what she said?
She say.
She said, well, I've never heard of anything like this. Nothing in the literature. Your energy can be hot or cold or like electricity, but there's nothing like you described. Well, that wasn't very affirming.
Oh no.
But finally, and this was a turning point in my life, I met Andrew Harvey, who had come there to teach.
We love Andrew.
And what?
We love Andrew. Yeah.
Oh, well, I literally fell in love with him.
Yeah.
I mean, what I mean is on a spiritual level. But he listened to my story, and he knew what I was telling him.
Mm-hmm.
And he sort of actually took me under his wing and became my teacher. And I learned so much from him. He never tried to teach me about the process itself.
Yeah.
What he taught me was how to write and why he told me I had to write. Gave me an assignment.
Beautiful.
And so I wrote, he said, said, Dorothy, you have to write a book of poetry. And I said, oh, I couldn't do that. I can write a poem sometimes. I couldn't write a whole book. Yes, you can, he said. So he told me, and I did write the first book,
Yeah.
and then several others followed. But he helped me over, and then he's done many YouTube videos with me. They're on YouTube. And
Yes.
we're still very close. And Andrew now, a few years ago, had his own actual Kundalini awakening. Now, I always felt that he represented the kind of energy and creativity that Kundalini is supposed to give you.
Absolutely.
But the thing was, he hadn't really felt it in his body in the way that he could say, this is my Kundalini awakening.
Mhm.
So that was wonderful. It changed my life.
Yeah, having someone that understands who you can relate to and share it all with can change everything about it. We're excited to we've spoken with Andrew and he's a part of the film too, and we're excited about his contribution. And I've in one of my darkest periods, I found a video conversation between you and Andrew, and it just gave me that hope I needed to hold on one more day, and then one more day, and one more day. So I thank you for putting that out there.
Well, that was the hope.
Yeah, exactly.
Just want to help people. And of course, he's so beautiful and so eloquent and express everything so wonderfully.
Yeah.
So that was a good thing to do.
Yeah. Well, maybe we're at about an hour, so I wonder if there's anything you want to say kind of in conclusion, and then we can also have another conversation when Katrina's available and she can
Okay.
answer questions, because we might as
You.
well keep this going. Yeah. We might as well keep this going.
Well, I'd love to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm so thrilled that you're doing this. And what occurs to me, I said Kundalini was sort of like a coin with two sides.
Yeah.
I can talk at length about the ecstasy side. I'll have to say, if I say nothing else, I am no stranger to ecstasy. That is a fact. Now, I don't have that now like I did at first. Certainly not every day, very few days, but once in a while, it returns unexpectedly. And then, well, and I think, well, it's still there. I think once it gets turned on, it never really turns off. But you see, I think that you are wonderfully placed to help those who are not having ecstasy, but having the dark side of the coin.
Yeah.
Because you've been there, done that, you know that path. And you're a beautiful example of hang on, my dears, better days are ahead. I think better days are ahead. I think for some people, it will take a lot longer to literally accommodate and assimilate these. They are new frequencies. They are brand new frequencies, and they will actually probably give you gifts that you never dreamed of. And I have met people, some of whom who suddenly got acute hearing, and they could hear what was being said down in the next block. I've got people who've had acute vision, and they could see 2 or 3 blocks down there. It was amazing. The gift that I have been given personally is the gift of feeling. Feel the ecstasies. But when I was in Ireland, I could literally feel as bliss the ecstasy coming up out of the ground.
Wow.
That's a beautiful thing. When I went to Tara, which is a very, very sacred place in Ireland, and I am Irish, by the way, Scotch Irish. The ecstasy was so intense, I almost fell over.
Wow.
Feel the things. I can sometimes feel the energies, and for me, it would almost always be as bliss coming from a work of art, from a picture, from a painting, from an ancient Chinese vase. I can feel that. I frequently have felt other people's energetic bodies, sometimes when I didn't mean to and didn't want to.
Right.
But it's there. I could feel it. my disappointment has always been I wanted to do energy healing,
Mm-hmm.
but I never got the right. I was afraid to have a teacher because I had such a strong inner teacher. I wanted to stay with that,
Yeah.
and I never did actually, except a few times, get to practice energy healing. But someone said it was consoling to me. She said, "Your poems are healing." So
Mm-hmm.
that is true.
Mm-hmm. Cool. That's amazing.
So that's my story.
Sure. Well, so much more to explore, and we can do this again.
I said, I'm Dorothy from Kansas, and that's my story.
No, we're definitely not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy.
Oh, there I wasn't really in Kansas.
Exactly. Um,
Well, thank you so much.
thank you so much. So grateful for you and the work you're doing to help people. And I'll provide a link so that people can know how to reach you. And we'll talk again. And you'll ultimately be in our film when the quarantine lifts and we're able to actually shoot something. Yeah, yeah.
This kind of preliminary thing.
Yeah, we just want to connect with people who are looking for this information, and this is the easiest way to do it.
Is this going to be on YouTube? This?
Yes. Yes, so we'll put this on YouTube. Um, and yeah, I'll send it to you later, and let's talk again really soon.
Let's do it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
I
Love you too. Okay. I'll
love the work that you all are doing. It's just incredible. Where were you when I needed you?
I know. I was being born.
Oh, that's the odd thing. Way, in a very different way.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I'll email you